SAO is a train wreck. The writing isn't just bad, it's outright insulting, filled with shallow plot lines and nonsensical twists that were thrown together without any effort. The characters are boring, one-dimensional cliches with no depth or growth, making it impossible to care about them or their stories. The pacing is appalling, and the narrative relies on tired tropes or forced drama instead of real storytelling. There's absolutely nothing redeeming about SAO. It has no memorable moments and no substance. It's a hollow, overhyped mess that doesn't deserve its popularity. The actual games within the show are downright atrocious. The game design is so absurdly awful that it feels like a slap in the face to anyone who's ever touched an MMO. It's painfully obvious the author has zero experience with MMOs and couldn't be bothered to do even the bare minimum of research. The mechanics are laughable, the progression systems are unrealistic, and the world building is so dumb it collapses under the weight of its own stupidity. Every attempt to portray gaming culture is cringe-inducing, riddled with inconsistencies and lazy shortcuts that make it clear the author doesn't understand or respect the genre. SAO is like a bad joke that isn't funny, it's just embarrassing. If you want to see SAO get roasted for its pathetic excuse of game design, you've got to watch Mother's Basement's video tearing it apart. It's a brutal, no-holds-barred breakdown of just how ridiculously terrible the game mechanics are. The video exposes how the creator didn't just ignore MMO design, they clearly didn't look up anything about it. From laughable systems to illogical mechanics, this video shows exactly how SAO gets everything wrong. If you're still defending this mess of a show, this video will definitely open your eyes to how lousy the game design really is. It's a necessary watch for anyone willing to admit how flawed SAO truly is. Anyone who genuinely likes SAO is delusional. There are plenty of other anime out there that actually respects its audience with compelling stories, complex characters, and real artistry. Stop wasting your time on this overrated drivel. Don't even bother watching SAO, ironically. It's a waste of your time and energy. It's just a painful experience, and you're better off spending your time on literally anything else. Watching paint dry would be more productive. If you want to watch a decent anime where an overpowered character gets transported to a video game world, How Not to Summon a Demon Lord is what you should be watching. Unlike SAO, which is a disaster, How Not to Summon a Demon Lord gets it right. It's entertaining, with a more coherent story and better character development. The plot is also far more engaging if you know what I mean. The characters are easy to love, and you feel invested in their journey. The animation is vibrant and smooth, making every scene a joy to watch. The fight scenes burst with energy, keeping the action thrilling from start to finish. The world building makes sense. The stakes feel real, and most importantly, it doesn't insult your intelligence with horrible writing. This is the show you need to watch, not the dumpster fire that is SAO. Hopefully, they make a season 3 of How Not to Summon a Demon Lord, and they stop making more seasons of SAO. The fictional game, Cross Reverie, might not be flawless, but it outshines SAO's game design in every way. It's clear the author did their homework and knows their stuff. Let's break down Cross Reverie and see why it's better than SAO. After that, we'll dive into the fictional games within some other anime, so stick around if you want to see how those measure up.
What if Cross Reverie was a real game? Would it be fun to play? I've played a ton of MMORPGs before, so I'm pretty knowledgeable about the subject. In this video, I'll analyze How Not to Summon a Demon Lord and break down Cross Reverie's game design. The anime begins with Takuma Sakamoto playing Cross Reverie. His character is named Diablo and he's a high-level demon lord. Takuma mentions that Cross Reverie is the most played MMORPG in the world, so it's pretty much like World of Warcraft in this universe. The user interface of Cross Reverie is pretty standard. You have the chat box in the bottom left-hand corner, the name and status points in the top left-hand corner, an ability bar in the bottom middle, and then the world map in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Takuma is using a mouse and keyboard to play Cross Reverie, so it goes to show that it's just a normal MMORPG, not a full-dive virtual reality game like Sword Art Online. You play Cross Reverie in a third-person point of view, which is typically how it works in MMORPGs. The character equipment screen is pretty standard as well. There are different equipment slots for gear, and they each give separate bonuses for the player. There's offensive and defensive stats. In terms of offense, there's strength, magic, dexterity, wisdom, and critical. In terms of defense, there's defense, power, agility, movement, and luck. Takuma suddenly finds himself in Cross Reverie. He's taken on the appearance of Diablo. A Pantherian girl and an elf girl are nearby. They summon Diablo to this world. Diablo sees that the girls are arguing, and he commands them to shake hands. The girls are forced to do exactly what Diablo said. It turns out that the enslavement ritual has been reflected, since Diablo was wearing a powerful ring that can reflect all magic. This means that the girls are Diablo's slaves, and they have to wear slave collars. There are way too many anime taking place inside video games that use slavery as a plot point. The girls introduce themselves to Diablo. The elf girl is named Shira L. Greenwood. Greenwood, and the Pantherian girl is named Rem Galou. The characters go to an inn located in a border city called Faltra. Cross Reverie seems to be a very generic medieval fantasy game. Furthermore, the city of Faltra looks like nearly every other city in an isekai anime. There are a lot of animal people in this game. It reminds me of the Lin race in Blade and Soul. Diablo, Shira, and Rem meet a woman named Celestine Baudelaire. She's the head of the Mages Association. Celestine is here to settle some business with Rem. She sees that Shira and Rem have slave collars around their necks. Diablo can remove or destroy the slave collars, but Celestine plans to find a way to get rid of them. Diablo suspects that Rem is keeping a secret, and he forces her to confess it. Rem reveals that she has the demon lord Krebsgolm sealed inside her body. Krebsgolm is the most powerful boss in all of Cross Reverie. Celestine was the only one who knew Rem's secret, and she was trying to find a way to remove Krebsgolm from Rem's body without killing her. Rem's mother also had Krebsgolm inside her body, so it's hereditary. Diablo promises to help Rem remove Krebsgolm from her body. Diablo goes out for a walk alone. A mage named Gallic attacks Diablo with a giant level 30 salamander. This shows that players can get attacked anywhere. Towns and cities are usually safe areas in MMORPGs, but that's not the case here. Diablo easily defeats the salamander, since level 30 is nothing to him, and he's level 150. Diablo declares that he's a demon lord from another world. Diablo wakes up and he's still inside Cross Reverie, so it wasn't a dream. This also demonstrates that players need to sleep inside the game. That would be pretty inconvenient. Diablo can feel all the sensations. Obviously, if Cross Reverie was a real game, then this wouldn't be possible because it's just a normal MMORPG. Diablo, Shira, and Rem go to the Adventurers Guild. The guildmaster Sylvie comes and talks with the characters. Sylvie assigns them a quest to defeat a Madara snake in the man-eating woods. So the quests in the game are pretty basic. They're the standard kill X monster and retrieve the loot type of mission. Shira senses enemies nearby and Diablo attacks them. The magic combat in this game is pretty good. The enemies turn out to be elves. Shira recognizes the elves, and they say that she's the princess of Greenwood. The elves demand Diablo to release Shira so that she can return to the kingdom. Shira refuses to go back to Greenwood since her brother wants to marry her. Are the writers from Alabama? The elves shoot arrows at Diablo, but it doesn't do anything, so there's also ranged combat in this game. Diablo easily defeats all the elves with an ice spell. There are a diverse amount of interesting spells, so Diablo can use fire and ice spells. It's pretty similar to the Force Master class in Blade and Soul. The combat in Cross Reverie seems pretty fun as long as you're also super OP like Diablo. It turns out that Gallic was the one who put the elves up to this, since he wanted revenge against Diablo. Rem threatens to report Gallic to the Mages Association, and he flees. Shira tells the elves to give her brother a message. She won't be returning home. Diablo understands why everyone in this world is so low level. It's because they can actually die, and they don't respawn like in the game, so it's not worth the risk to level up. Sylvie gives Diablo and Shira a simple quest. Rem stays behind. They have to go to the bridge of Ulag and deliver refreshments. So yet again, the quests are very basic. A level 50 warrior named Emile Bichel Berger attacks Diablo, since he thinks that he's a demon lord. It turns out that Diablo's horns are fake, and it's just a cosmetic appearance. So are outfits in this game completely cosmetic like in Blade and Soul? Because if that's not the case, then it doesn't make sense for Diablo to wear fake horns during combat. You should be wearing the best in slot equipment that provides the most bonuses, not whatever makes you look good. And I guess Diablo is just a regular human. He isn't even an actual demon lord. Emile is much lower level than Diablo and he loses the fight, so levels are a big deal in Cross Reverie, just like Sword Art Online. If your numbers are high enough, then you're pretty much invincible. Shira and Rem tell Emile the truth about Diablo, so he leaves. Diablo and Shira arrive at the bridge of Ulag. The guards tell them that a huge army of over 100 Fallen is headed this way. The Fallen were treated as boss monsters in Cross Reverie. It doesn't make sense for 100 boss monsters to gather in one place. If Cross Reverie was a real game, then how are the players supposed to defeat 100 boss monsters at the same time? Is everyone in Cross Reverie super OP like Diablo? Diablo helps the guards defend the bridge, since they won't survive on their own. Celestine talks with Rem back in the city. Gallic suddenly shows up, and he uses a cursed dagger to stab himself. Gallic's body is taken over and he transforms into a Fallen named Gregor. Diablo single-handedly defeats many Fallen. The commander, Edelgard, comes to fight Diablo. Edelgard is a Lancer, so it seems like there are different classes in Cross Reverie, even for the NPCs. This is typically how it works in many MMORPGs, especially the Asian ones. Gregor wants to kill Rem and Celestine. Rem summons several creatures, but they can't defeat Gregor, so Rem is a typical summoner class that you see in MMORPGs. Emile and several other warriors come to protect Rem and Celestine. There are a lot of different melee weapons in this game. Emile isn't able to defeat Gregor. Edelgard fights Diablo, but she isn't able to do too much damage to him. A soldier tells Diablo that Rem and Celestine are being attacked by a Fallen right now. Diablo uses a powerful spell called White Nova to kill all of the nearby Fallen. It's cool to see the different spells and how they work. Edelgard somehow survives after taking the White Nova. Diablo uses return magic to teleport himself and Shira back to the city. So there's also teleportation in Cross Reverie. Players don't have to walk or run everywhere. Diablo gives a healing potion to Celestine so she can heal Emile, so players can restore their HP by drinking a potion, which is usually how it works in MMORPGs. Diablo uses his magic, and he seals Gregor's soul in a dimension of darkness for all of eternity. Diablo's magic reflection ring is way too overpowered. He's pretty much invincible to anyone using magic. If Cross Reverie was a real game, then how are the players who picked the magician class supposed to fight against Diablo? They wouldn't be able to do anything. Sylvie delivers a message to Diablo, Shira, and Rem. She says that the elves demand Shira to be handed over to them in 10 days, or they'll start a war. Shira's brother Kira has placed a huge bounty on her. A lot of adventurers are trying to find Shira so they can claim that bounty. Diablo is very angry and he vows to protect Shira, so this is pretty much a standard protection type of quest. The characters go and meet the Lord of the City, Chester Ray Galford. The elves are concealed in a forest. There are 100 of them at most. Chester doesn't want to send his troops into the forest because they'll get ambushed. Shira explains that she refuses to go back to her kingdom because she wants the freedom to be herself. A female Imperial Knight named Alicia Christella joins the party to help the characters fight against the elves. In Cross Reverie, only powerful people with a strong lineage could become Imperial Knights. They're supposed to be the elite of the elite, so it seems like there are different jobs in Cross Reverie, at least for the NPCs. Diablo visits a weaponsmith. He buys a scythe to defeat weaker opponents, so that he doesn't need to waste his magic points on them. Diablo also doesn't want to accidentally kill anyone in front of an Imperial Knight, so whatever class Diablo is playing can use both magic and melee. It's a hybrid like the Soul Fighter class in Blade and Soul. Shira goes off on her own, and she gets kidnapped by some bounty hunters. Diablo easily defeats some other bounty hunters, and he goes after Shira. Diablo can move at a very fast speed. It probably has something to do with his high agility stat. Emil saves Shira, and he takes the kidnappers away. Emil states that he has the ability to smell a woman's scent when she sweats. That's pretty creepy, even if it is just a joke. The NPCs in this game have some janky dialogue. Celestine has figured out a way to remove the slave collars. The characters go to a slave market, and they meet a slave trader named Medios. What kind of game is this supposed to be? Medios can see the flow of magic, and she knows that Rem has a demon inside her body. Rem and Alicia leave the room. Diablo tries to insert his magic into Shira. Diablo quits before the process is complete, since it's way more complicated than he thought. Kira comes into the room. He's like a discount version of Oberon from the Fairy Dance arc of Sword Art Online. Oberon was already a god-awful character, and Kira is even worse. Kira tries to convince Shira to come back home. Shira still refuses to return and Kira leaves. During the night, Shira tells Rem that she wants to open a cafe, so you can have your own shop and business in this game. That's a cool feature. Diablo has a dream about his childhood. The other kids would pretend to be friends with him, but they were really just using him to get better items in the game that they were playing. Why does Diablo have an adult animation protagonist hairstyle? Back in the present, Diablo makes several potions. He needs herbs and vials of water. This is exactly how the herb lore skill works in RuneScape. Diablo lets his mind wander, and his body subconsciously creates the potions. It's unclear how this is possible. Did Diablo bot his account when he played Cross Reverie? Kira plays a flute outside and he hypnotizes Shira. She leaves with Kira to go back to Greenwood. Diablo is very sad and he starts crying. Kira interrogates Shira. Diablo, Rem, and Alicia come to save Shira. Diablo defeated all of Kira's guards. Kira hypnotizes Shira again, but Diablo commands her to tell the truth. Shira says that she wants to be free and stay here with Diablo and Rem. Kira is angry and he summons a giant monster called the Force Hydra. There are a lot of Hydra monsters in Isekai anime for some reason. Diablo fights the Force Hydra on his own. He doesn't remember seeing a summon like this in Cross Reverie. It's possible that future updates of Cross Reverie that haven't been released in the real world are present here. So is this like a Leodale situation where Diablo is in Cross Reverie, but hundreds of years have passed? The Force Hydra can regenerate. This should have been obvious, because that's typically how Hydras work in other movies, shows, and games. Summons are supposed to be limited to just one power, but the Hydra has many different attacks. Summoning familiars shouldn't be so powerful. They should only assist someone in combat a little, not outright do most of the damage. Shira tells Diablo to find and destroy the Force Hydra's core. The core moves continuously within the Force Hydra's body, so it won't be easy to find. So there are actual mechanics. Diablo completely Exodia obliterates the Force Hydra in one blow. Diablo is way too OP. He should have only been able to defeat the Force Hydra if he destroyed the core. The game isn't very fun if you can just cheese your way through everything. There has to be actual challenges, or the player is gonna get bored pretty quickly. Diablo is about to kill Kira, but Shira begs him to spare her brother since he's still family. Chester appears and he beheads Kira. Chester plans to capture Shira and seize Greenwood. He traps Diablo in an energy sphere. Chester destroys Alicia's sword. He moves very quickly. Diablo suspects that Chester is above level 100. Diablo breaks out of the energy sphere and he fights Chester. Diablo wins the fight, but he doesn't kill Chester. This was actually a fairly balanced fight for once. Diablo had to struggle. Alicia threatens to report Chester, so he backs down and withdraws his units. Diablo used a lot of his magic points, so he's exhausted and rests in bed. Sylvie gives Diablo a drink that can recover his magic points. Diablo drinks it, but he ends up getting drunk, even though there's no drunk status in Cross Reverie. If that's the case, then it's uncertain how Diablo Diablo got drunk. Diablo mistakes Sylvie for a body pillow, and then he passes out. Alicia encounters a paladin named Sadler. He's heading to Fultra to investigate Diablo. Shira summons a turkey shot and she enslaves it. Shira can use the turkey shot to improve her aim, since she can see what it sees. This is a pretty cool mechanic. It's interesting to see the unique abilities of each summon in this game. Diablo throws a coin, so this is presumably the currency used in Cross Reverie. Edelgard comes to talk. She's able to detect that Krebsgolm is inside Rem's body. Shira doesn't understand what's going on, so the characters explain the truth to her. Edelgard will wait at Starfall Tower in 3 days. She can conduct a ritual to remove Krebsgolm from Rem's body. Alicia comes and she warns the characters about Sadler. Alicia says that Sadler is over level 100. They run into Sadler and he attacks Rem with his magic. Diablo can tell that it's a simple spell. Sadler attempts to turn Diablo into cement, but his ring reflects the magic, and Sadler is turned into cement instead. Once again, the magic reflection ring is way too powerful. It shouldn't be able to completely reflect all the magic. Diablo thinks that Sadler was using an ability called Subtle Chant, which allows him to cast spells without speaking the name out loud. So do the players in Cross Reverie have to type out their spells as well before casting them? If so, then that would be really inconvenient. The cement spell will eventually dissipate. The characters tell Alicia the truth about Rem. Afterwards, they head for Starfall Tower. This is the place where Diablo was first summoned. Edelgard already took care of the preparations. Diablo pours his magic power into Rem. Krebsgolm is released, and she's just a little girl. So the most powerful boss monster in all of Cross Reverie is a loli. Who designed this game? Krebsgolm lost all of her memories. She can't even remember why she's doing all of this. Krebsgolm is hungry and Shira gives her some cookies. Krebsgolm really enjoys the cookies. A fallen named Eularex comes. Diablo remembers him from Cross Reverie. Eularex finds out that Krebsgolm isn't interested in killing mortals, and he attacks her so that she can reincarnate again. Diablo and Edelgard fight Eularex. Diablo is way too powerful, so Eularex retreats. The characters return to Fultra. Edelgard can't come into the city. Krebsgolm's name is changed to Clem. Alicia recalls how her parents were very abusive towards her. She wants Clem to destroy all the mortal races. Sadler returns to normal and he vows to get revenge against Diablo. Clem eats more cookies. The characters talk to Celestine, and they introduce her to Clem. Celestine is glad that Clem is not trying to kill the mortal races. Alicia takes Rem and Clem to Sadler. Rem tries to fight Sadler, but she's not strong enough to beat him. Rem and Clem wake up in a cage. Sadler takes them to a church. Sadler plans to torture Rem until she confesses that she's a demon lord worshipper. Diablo finds out where Rem and Clem were taken. A massive army of fallen led by Edelgard is approaching the city. Sadler stabs Rem several times and Clem is furious. She transforms into her demon mode. Clem kills Sadler and she destroys the church. It turns out that Alicia has been working with the fallen this entire time. Diablo and Shira come to see what happened. Diablo fights Clem and he uses a bunch of powerful spells. Diablo is way too overpowered. This is supposed to be the strongest boss monster in all of Cross Reverie, so the fight should be more challenging. You shouldn't be able to easily solo the strongest boss monsters in an MMORPG. Shira uses a bunch of healing potions on Rem. Diablo gave all of his healing potions to Shira, so he doesn't have any to use for himself. There might be some abilities that Diablo can use to heal himself. Emil comes to move Shira and Rem to safety. Diablo uses a powerful spell, but Clem is still alive. Rem talks to Clem. She says that she's okay and everything is alright. Clem reverts back to being a little girl. How would this boss fight even work in Cross Reverie? Sylvie wants to kill Clem since she's too dangerous. However, Diablo makes Clem his slave, which means that she has to obey him. Alicia wants Clem to heal an injured Edelgard. The other fallen attacked Edelgard. After their plan of exterminating the mortal races failed, Clem heals Edelgard. Clem will permanently stay in her original form, and she demands Edelgard to stop killing people. Alicia explains why she's a demon lord worshipper. Diablo understands where Alicia is coming from, since he never fit in either. Diablo tells Alicia to stop wasting her life and just be herself. Rem forgives Alicia. Finally, the anime ends with Shira and Rem asking Diablo to pick one of them to kiss, but he refuses since he's a demon lord and can do whatever he wants. Overall, Cross Reverie seems to be a pretty average game. It feels like a lot of generic medieval fantasy MMORPG out there. The combat seems really fun, and the magic in particular is decent, but as a whole there's not much that's unique about Cross Reverie. It's not a terrible game like Sword Art Online, but it's also not very memorable either. The lore is basic and bare bones. We only got to see the game from the perspective of someone who's extremely high level and overpowered, so it's gonna be a lot different to a new player or someone who's low level. It was weird how we didn't see any other players. Diablo stated at the beginning that Cross Reverie was the most played MMORPG in the world, so there should have been millions of other players. We also didn't get to experience a lot of features in the game. For example, what's the leveling process like? What kind of outfits are in the game? And what kind of dungeons are there? Are there any pay-to-win aspects? Furthermore, keep in mind that Cross Reverie is just a normal MMORPG, played with a mouse and keyboard, so if it was a real game then players wouldn't be able to feel or taste anything like Diablo. If Cross Reverie was a real game, then I would recommend people give it a try to see if they like it. However, I highly doubt that Cross Reverie would become become the most popular MMORPG in the world? Which fictional game in a movie or show should I analyze next? Leave a suggestion in the comments below. Thanks for watching and subscribe for more.
As you can see, Cross Reverie is a solid game. Sure, it's not flawless, what game is? But it's immersive, creative, and actually worth getting lost in. Compared to Cross Reverie, SAO is like a buggy, half-baked cash grab designed to punish anyone dumb enough to play it. Cross Reverie feels like a real adventure, while SAO is just a glorified PowerPoint presentation of bad ideas. Frankly, SAO doesn't even deserve to be mentioned in the same sentence as Cross Reverie. It's an insult to good game design and storytelling. Now, let's explore the games featured in other anime.
Is Legendary Age the game featured in And You Thought There Is Never a Girl Online fun to play? Join us in this video as we dissect the game design. The healer uses a healing spell, and it pulls aggro. Why is it like this? Tanks are supposed to keep aggro. Plus, the healer can't even hurt the mobs. Being a healer in this game is unenjoyable because you can't fight much. This is also one of those class-based MMOs with melee and mage classes. There's friendly fire, so you can actually hurt your teammates. That doesn't sound like fun at all, as you might accidentally mess up and harm or kill your own party members. The game's your standard MMO played with a mouse and keyboard, not some full dive experience like Sword Art Online. Plus, the graphics are kinda cartoonish, and it's in that isometric style, similar to many real MMOs. Legendary Age is one of those games you access through a launcher, like most MMOs. The login screen is as basic as it gets. The user interface is pretty standard. There's the chat box in the bottom left-hand corner, and party members' information in the top left-hand corner, a mini-map in the top right-hand corner, and settings in the bottom right-hand corner. Additionally, there are some hotbars in the bottom middle of the screen. The base game is free, but they're charging for extras, so Legendary Age is essentially like a bunch of those freemium MMOs. Players can goof up and heal enemies instead of their teammates. Why even have that as a thing? It could be misused by players to troll others, constantly keeping mobs alive and making the game frustrating. There's this one player with a ton of overpowered premium items giving them a big advantage. This is why freemium MMOs get a bad rep in the community. They're always pay to win, so those ready to drop real cash get a massive leg up in the game. Players can get married and score a spousal stat boost. If that's the deal, then why aren't all the players married? MMO players are always hunting for every boost they can get to beef up their attack power. All communication is done through typing, no voice chat available. A guy shares a story of proposing to a cat girl in the game, only to discover that it was a guy in real life. Honestly, it's not that shocking. The vast majority of female MMO characters are actually guys in the real world. This also proves that there are different races in the game, not just humans. The guild members decide to have a real-life meetup, and it turns out they're all local. The chances of that are insanely low, since MMO players come from all over the world. Even if we consider the possibility that Legendary Age is exclusive to Japan, the odds of such a coincidental gathering remain strikingly slim, since there are millions of people in Japan. What's even crazier is that they're all students who attend the same school. There's a character wearing totally mismatched armor, purely for the looks, without caring about the actual benefits. Most MMOs offer cosmetic overrides if you're all about appearance, but that's not an option here. The player vows not to use premium items when questing in a group. It's kind of pointless. If you've bought premium items, why not use them? It's way more efficient, since it speeds up monster kills and quest completion. There's a player in a bear costume wielding a giant leek as a weapon. It totally ruins the immersion. This is supposed to be a medieval fantasy game, so that outfit doesn't match the visual theme and style at all. Surprisingly, the cat girl is actually a woman in real life, and she's also the main character's homeroom teacher. The sheer improbability of these characters having such a close connection is mind-boggling. The game has a reincarnation system. When your character reaches max level, you can start a new one with the old character's skill set carried over. It's alt-friendly, so no need to start from scratch if you're already maxed and want to create a new account. Players can purchase mystery boxes that give random loot, so the game features a gacha system. It's pretty standard for freemium MMOs. One character had no clue how to log out when they first started playing the game, indicating there's no tutorial. This could be a major problem for new players, since they'd be utterly utterly lost without any help or guidance. There's zero privacy at the inn. Other players can see what you're doing. It's definitely not enjoyable if you want some alone time. There's a character named Cloud who's a spitting image of Cloud Strife from the Final Fantasy games. It's not too surprising. In MMOs, many people love to roleplay as famous characters from other media. You can play the game on a laptop. No need for a high-end gaming PC. The characters assist a new player in finishing a beginner's quest. Group questing can be exploited. New players could leech off others who do the heavy lifting. Typically, in MMOs, quests are meant to be completed solo. There's a summoner job in the game, although it might make more sense for summoner to be an actual class rather than a job. The characters visit a hotel that's collaborating with Legendary Age. While game collaborations are common, it's quite unusual for it to involve a hotel. The characters log into the game from the hotel, and they're placed in a special map. This is unfair to those who can't participate. People who miss out will be mad and complain, akin to the Golden Scythe incident at RuneFest. The first 25 RuneScape players who solved a puzzle were awarded the item, leaving those who missed it rightfully upset. The characters dine at a restaurant where the food they order in real life unlocks the same items in the game. This, too, seems unfair to those who can't participate. It also intensifies the pay-to-win aspect, as affluent players can simply buy a ton of food at the restaurant to gain in-game advantages. The main character gets hacked after logging in from a public computer, revealing the game's weak account security. Measures like two-factor authentication should be in place. Players invest a lot of time and money into their MMO accounts, so getting hacked is extremely devastating. The main character got phished, highlighting the urgent need for improved account security. Phishing scams are regrettably widespread within the gaming community, posing a substantial risk to unsuspecting players. It's crucial to enhance safety measures to better protect the players. Upon logging back into the game, the main character finds that their account was erased. It shouldn't be so easy to delete an account. There ought to be a time delay and a verification process to ensure the account's rightful owner is in control, especially in cases of potential hacking. The guy manages to track down all of his stolen items, but it raises the question of how he can be certain those are indeed the exact items he owned. Is there a special unique item ID or some form of verification? If not, then these items could have belonged to anyone. The admins aren't taking any action regarding the hack. This is typically the case in MMOs. They consider it your responsibility if you get hacked and won't get involved. Real money trading is explicitly prohibited by the game's terms of service. This is the standard practice in nearly every MMO. The character set up a trap for the hacker, leading to a suspension by a game master for a measly 3 days. Considering the likely hundreds of daily hacking incidents and other problems, it's improbable that there are enough game masters to address all the issues. Moreover, the punishment of 3 days suspension isn't severe enough. In most MMOs, hacking and real money trading often result in permanent bans to deter such behavior. The admin restores the deleted account, which raises questions about the purpose of a delete account feature if players can have their account reinstated later. It seems rather pointless to include such a feature. Players who no longer want their account can simply stop playing the game. A party is wiped out because the healer couldn't keep up. In most MMOs, especially those without classes, players can consume food or use potions to regain their HP. They don't have to solely rely on the healer. A character intends to use their premium items during siege warfare, but they discover that premium items aren't permitted in these battles. This is good, as it promotes fairness for everyone involved. It's nice to see that at least one facet of PvP in this game isn't completely pay to win. The absence of a limit on the number of guild members participating in siege warfare means that the guild with the most players is likely to win. Implementing a hard cap on guild size would be a fairer approach. The PvP in this game is severely unbalanced, with players vulnerable to one-hit KOs. Players should have a chance to react, heal, or defend themselves rather than being immediately defeated. In a real game, players would undoubtedly be voicing their complaints about this issue. The characters utilize a massive mecha weapon that obliterates the gate. The presence of such a strong weapon during siege warfare seems to tip the balance significantly in favor of the attacking side. The mage uses an extremely powerful area of effect attack that kills a group of enemies at once. This attack is overpowered. It's unclear how players on the receiving end of such an attack are expected to defend themselves effectively and survive. A player uses a bunch of stat-boosting elixirs to increase her attack power. There should be a limit on the number of active stat boosts to avoid potential imbalance and exploits in the game. The mage repeatedly spams her hotkey to drink healing potions and stay alive. There should be a cooldown for consuming healing potions. Otherwise, players could essentially become invulnerable as long as they have a potion supply. The mage spent a significant amount of real-life money to purchase those healing potions, showcasing one of the main reasons why pay-to-win games can be unfun. Those who can't, or won't, spend real money are at a major disadvantage. Just as premium items are disallowed in Siege Warfare, other items acquired with real-life money should also be restricted to maintain fairness for everyone participating. The players take a screenshot of their Siege Warfare victory to flaunt at the school festival. However, those who don't play the game won't understand the meaning of this, rendering it pointless to show off to them. Overall, Legendary Age has some questionable design choices, such as healing spells generating aggro and allowing friendly fire, making it less enjoyable, especially for healers. It follows the standard MMO format, played with a mouse and keyboard, and offers in-game purchases. The game's lack of a tutorial, weak account security, and lenient penalties for hacking are areas of concern. There are also issues with the unbalanced gameplay, including overpowered abilities and the prevalence of pay-to-win elements that create an unfair advantage. If you liked the analysis of Legendary Age's game design and want to stay updated on more MMO content and reviews, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We'd love to have you as part of the community. Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments section on what to analyze next. We always appreciate your feedback and suggestions for future videos. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video. Is Arc Earth Online, the game featured in She Professed Herself Pupil of the Wise Man, fun to play? Join us in this video as we dissect the game design. It's explained that Arc Earth Online is a virtual reality MMORPG. The login screen is super dull, everything is left in the hands of the players, and there's complete freedom, so it's a sandbox and not a theme park. The user interface is lacking. There's the name and status points in the top left-hand corner, as well as additional boxes for other settings. However, there's no chat box, hotbars, inventory, gear setup, or even a mini-map. It's missing all the good stuff. This game being played on a computer doesn't make sense considering that it's a virtual reality MMORPG, and you'd expect a first-person point of view, but nope, you're stuck with a less immersive third-person perspective. There's zero guidance, so everyone's left to fend for themselves. Independent players might enjoy the freedom, but for others, it's a recipe for frustration when they're stuck and can't figure out what to do. Guides should become available soon, since players are likely to create their own. A multitude of players crafted their own kingdoms from the ground up. The self-proclaimed kings engaged in epic battles where the fate of their entire nations hung in the balance. The game boasts massive player versus player showdowns, but it's mind-boggling that the servers don't crash with so many players crammed into one location. Like in most MMOs, there's the usual assortment of classes such as warriors, paladins, summoners, and mages available in Arc Earth Online. Players can capture in-game moments with a built-in feature, allowing them to take snapshots of their virtual adventures. The inability to taste the food and drink diminishes the immersion factor. In other virtual reality MMO anime, players can actually experience the taste of what they consume in the game. The main character goes by the name Dunbalf Gandador, which is a mashup of Dumbledore from Harry Potter and Gandalf from The Lord of the Rings. It's a common trend among MMO players to draw inspiration from characters in other media for their own usernames. The PvP is ridiculously lopsided. The top players can wipe out entire armies all by themselves. Going up against these people would be a downright nightmare, as you wouldn't stand a chance against them. Players can have their own house and NPC servants, resembling the construction skill in RuneScape. Summoning an entire army and effortlessly defeating 10,000 monsters is overpowered. Players should only be capable of summoning one familiar at a time. A single player taking down such an enormous number of monsters is unreasonable. It's baffling that the summoner can still use melee attacks. It defies the typical class restrictions and leaves you wondering how it's even possible. Summoning a massive dragon to obliterate all the monsters is impressive, but there really ought to be a restriction on how many creatures a summoner can call forth. Without such limits, someone could summon an endless horde of NPCs to fight for them and effortlessly crush through everything in their path. The cash shop only offers cosmetic items. At least it's not pay to win, but it's inconvenient to pay real money to change your appearance. The character creation appears quite extensive, allowing adjustments to gender, body type, voice, eyebrows, eyes, nose, mouth, and hairstyle. It's rather puzzling that 30 years have elapsed in the game when, in reality, that much time hasn't passed. There seems to be a significant discrepancy in the way time operates within the game compared to the real world. Now that players can taste and smell the in-game food, it presents a double-edged sword. The delightful food will be a treat to eat, but on the flip side, unappealing food will be hard to stomach. The inclusion of modern toilets detracts from the immersion, considering that it's meant to be a medieval fantasy setting. It's an odd and out-of-place detail that doesn't quite fit the game's visual style and theme. And why do players now need to deal with bathroom breaks? That's not enjoyable. The characters driving around in an armored jeep is another immersion breaker. It doesn't make sense to have these vehicles in the context of the game's supposed medieval fantasy setting. Additionally, the lack of teleportation means players must physically traverse to all locations, which is incredibly inconvenient and time-consuming. Players are seemingly able to now use items that were intangible in the game, posing a logical question. How do they suddenly possess the skills and abilities to use these items that weren't originally usable within the game's framework? It doesn't add up. The combat is strikingly dull. Players don't actively participate in the battle. They simply stand still and summon minions to do the fighting on their behalf. If this was a real game, it's highly likely that players would quickly lose interest and decide to quit playing altogether. The main character undertakes a sub-quest to escort a boy to a nearby location. However, there's no reward, making it a total waste of time and effort. What's the purpose of these pointless sub-quests? To make matters worse, these quests are about as basic and shallow as they come, offering nothing of real substance or depth. The players can smell the stinky ghouls. This is why the capability to smell things is a mixed bag. While pleasant scents can be enjoyable, it's quite the opposite when it comes to foul creatures emitting unpleasant odors. Summoning a Valkyrie to effortlessly obliterate all the monsters in the dungeon is overpowered. Clearing the dungeon with such ease diminishes the challenge entirely, making the game lack any sense of difficulty. The massive underground castle raises questions about the lore behind it. Constructing such a colossal structure underground prompts inquiries regarding its existence and how it was feasibly built in such an unconventional location. The presence of yet another toilet further disrupts the immersion. Why does the game even have toilets in the first place? Players didn't need to use them before they got sucked into the game. Some outfits might be too large for players to wear. Unlike a typical MMO, these outfits don't automatically adjust to fit the player's body size. This could be a real annoyance, requiring players to specifically search for outfits that fit them. Additionally, being able to steal other players' outfits seems quite unfair and unfun. It's disheartening to imagine spending a substantial amount of in-game currency on cool outfits only to have them stolen by other players. Once again, it's confusing to see the summoner utilizing melee attacks. It's not supposed to be a hybrid class. The use of a paralysis ability raises concerns about the gaming experience. Being paralyzed in the midst of a battle doesn't seem enjoyable for the players, as it could ruin the flow of combat and detract from the overall gaming enjoyment. Being able to effortlessly jump on top of buildings raises questions about the in-game physics. Gravity might not function in the same way within this world, leading to a lack of realism or explanation for such feats. The characters divide the loot among themselves, so loot doesn't automatically go to the player who deals the most damage. This approach is positive, as it ensures that drops aren't solely reserved for the strongest players, giving others a chance to acquire rewards rewards as well. Players experiencing actual pain when they get hurt is unpleasant. Who in their right mind would want to go through real pain? The requirement for players to sleep is unproductive and time-consuming. The outfits seem to be quite appealing and well-designed. Players with a penchant for fashion should find themselves quite pleased with the variety and quality of the available attire. Players don't need to remain close to their summons, so they can simply summon numerous minions and dispatch them to different locations across the map. This grants an unfair advantage as they can multitask and carry out various other activities simultaneously. Defeating a giant legendary beast with powerful immortal arts attacks highlights the game's imbalance. Everything is excessively overpowered. A single player can effortlessly solo a legendary beast, which defies the notion of challenging gameplay. The duel where the summoner wins within seconds is uneventful. It's evident that the summoner's strength is overwhelming. Engaging battles are those where both sides stand a chance, not the ones that conclude in such swift victories. The PvP in this game is completely lopsided. The salamander can fly without wings and control flames, raising concerns about game balance. The summons are way too strong. The requirement for players to solve a Rubik's Cube in order to advance through the dungeon disrupts the immersion yet again. Given that the Rubik's Cube was invented in 1974, its presence doesn't align with the medieval fantasy theme, creating a jarring inconsistency. The ability of a dragon to transform into a human raises questions about its purpose or relevance. It seems unconventional and prompts curiosity about why this feature exists or how it fits into the mechanics and lore. Players riding animals is a cool and interesting feature. A stun that prevents movement isn't enjoyable for the affected player. Being unable to move due to such a status effect leads to frustration. The summoner's resistance to all status effects is an extremely overpowered buff, particularly in PvP scenarios. This level of advantage makes it extremely hard for the other players to compete on a level playing field. It's puzzling why this buff isn't available to all the players, considering how beneficial it is. The character's ability to defeat two legendary beasts with ease highlights the fact that they're too powerful, making the fights appear far too one-sided. The lack of challenging encounters diminishes the overall excitement and sense of accomplishment. Once more, the outfits seem to be exceptionally well crafted. Players with an interest in fashion will likely find a lot to be pleased about in this aspect. The emergence of an enormous raid boss, similar to a world boss fight in standard MMOs, presents an exciting challenge for all nearby players to unite and engage in an epic battle. However, the absence of any loot for such a collective effort diminishes the enjoyment and satisfaction of the experience. What's the point of engaging in this fight without any reward? Overall, Arc Earth Online leaves a lot to be desired when it comes to fun. The game has a lackluster login screen and a user interface that's missing essential features. It's weird how a virtual reality game is played on a computer, offering a less immersive third-person view, and it provides no guidance to players. On the plus side, the game allows players to shape their kingdoms and engage in epic battles, but the PvP seems unfair. Furthermore, the combat is dull, players can experience real pain, and the need to sleep is time-consuming. The outfits and customization options are appealing, but the presence of modern toilets and vehicles in a medieval fantasy setting is immersion-breaking. The lack of balance makes challenges seem one-sided. The game's inconsistency adds to the confusion, leaving players with mixed feelings about their experience. What are your thoughts on Arc Earth Online? Do you think it's a good or bad game? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments below, and don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more MMO content. Thanks for joining us on this journey, and see you in the next video. Is Planet, the game featured in Goodnight World, fun to play? Join us in this video as we dissect the game design. A player takes down a massive red dragon with a single strike. He's so overpowered. The other players struggled for 3 whole days and couldn't beat it. The player dishing out the most damage gets all the loot. This leaves the high-level players consistently raking in the rewards, while the newcomers are left with nothing, growing more and more disheartened until they inevitably throw in the towel and quit for good. Hunger is still an issue for players in this game. What happens if they decide to ignore their in-game meals? world. Do they die from starvation? If so, that wouldn't be fun. The game is played using a headset, akin to the Oasis from Ready Player One, but you have to tether it to a PC. However, don't expect a full dive experience like Sword Art Online, because players remain fully conscious in the real world. Players are permitted to use macros in the game. Why is this allowed? Macros can result in a slew of unfair advantages that can disrupt the level playing field. Players must speak out loud in real life to talk in the game. This is inconvenient, especially if you're too exhausted to chat. Moreover, many players would likely feel self-conscious or anxious about talking. It would be more practical to have a text-based communication option as well. The concept of players owning dungeons in the game raises quite a few eyebrows. Are there an endless supply of dungeons waiting to be claimed? Or is it a first-come, first-served system where players scramble to seize as many dungeons as possible? And does it mean other players are barred from entering a dungeon that you own? The prospect of earning a staggering 300 million yen by capturing the black bird in the game is undoubtedly a tantalizing incentive. However, it raises questions about how the company can possibly afford such a hefty payout. If the prize is genuinely that substantial, one would expect a flood of players competing to locate the black bird, turning it into a competition similar to the Easter egg hunt from Ready Player One. Players being able to destroy property is a recipe for disaster. Imagine being in the middle of a relaxing gaming session only for some malicious player to swoop in and wreck your virtual home. There should definitely be some boundaries in place to protect players from such disruptive experiences. This guy has rocket-powered boots, granting him the power of flight. It raises serious concerns about fair play. Facing off against someone who can simply take to the skies in the midst of a battle undoubtedly puts other players at a hopeless disadvantage, especially if they're only using melee weapons. It's an imbalance that could make any fight utterly one-sided. PvP is enabled everywhere in this game, and that's far from an ideal scenario. Having to constantly stay on high alert to fend off potential attacks can make the gaming experience feel like a never-ending battlefield, leaving players with little room for relaxation. The existence of a miniature doll version of players in the game while they're logged out is rather perplexing. One would naturally expect a player's avatar to vanish entirely when they log out. The characters come home only to be met with the disheartening sight of their house reduced to ruins. This unfortunate turn of events is a reminder why certain aspects of the game should be off limits to destruction. Discovering that your cherished virtual home has been obliterated is undoubtedly a buzzkill that drains the fun out of the gaming experience. The abrupt demise of a player out of nowhere perfectly illustrates why the omnipresent PvP element isn't an enjoyable aspect of the game. The constant threat of being blindsided and the ability to dispatch fellow players in a single hit would create an atmosphere of frustration. In a realistic gaming scenario, players would likely be angry at how easily they can die in this game. A colossal boss monster suddenly appears, mirroring the dynamics of a world boss fight you'd find in a typical MMO. All nearby players have the opportunity to band together and take on the monstrous foe as a team. Despite their best efforts, the players find themselves incapable of defeating the monster, even after targeting its supposed weak point. The inability to inflict any damage turns what should be an exciting battle into a grueling and unwinnable encounter, as the monster appears to be nigh invincible. This kind of fight can be a source of immense frustration. Players incurring a death penalty and experiencing real shocks when they die in the game is far from enjoyable, particularly in a genre where it's relatively easy to get killed. The fact that this guy met his end in a single hit without any chance to heal or defend himself just adds to the overall unfun and punishing nature of this gaming experience. Players being able to log out in the middle of combat is an exploitable feature. They could strategically bail from the game just before death, effectively dodging the consequences of defeat. In MMOs, players are typically required to wait until they're out of combat to successfully log out, a rule that prevents such loopholes. The login screen appears to be quite simplistic, offering the standard and familiar options commonly found in a typical MMO. The game's accessibility on a laptop shows that a high-end gaming PC is not necessary. That's good, since it would make the game more accessible. The magic reducer item, which can eliminate the barrier, raises raises questions about its purpose and balance. It's quite baffling why an item with the power to completely nullify other items even exists. Such unbalanced items can disrupt the integrity of the game. A player manages to destroy the barrier without relying on the magic reducer item. The erratic behavior of these barriers defies logic and consistency. Earlier, even the combined might of all players couldn't break through, and now a lone player can obliterate the barrier with a single hit. The PvP aspect of this game appears to be an energy-draining affair, demanding a constant flurry of dodging and precise attack targeting. It's certainly not the right choice for those seeking a laid-back and relaxed gaming experience, as it requires players to be constantly on their toes and fully engaged at all times. A girl is unhappy with her in-game appearance, suggesting that players may not have the option to customize their looks, and instead, it's randomly generated for them. This lack of control over their avatar's appearance could lead to dissatisfaction among players who end up with appearances they dislike. This, in turn, may prompt some to quit the game due to the perceived lack of personalization. The ability for dead players to continue talking is puzzling. One might expect that their avatars would vanish and go through a respawn process upon death. There's a spelling error here. The menus in the game seem to be poorly designed. The guild leader has the sole authority to disband the guild. This is quite problematic. Such critical decisions should require the consensus of all guild members, ensuring that the leader can't impulsively disband a guild. This prevents a potential misuse of power. The guild managed to recruit over 3,000 members. It's ridiculous that there's no hard cap on guild size. You can roll up to any fight with your entire guild and steamroll through everything. A player gets sliced in half and he's still alive. Do his legs ever grow back? Or is he condemned to play the game legless for good? This player can manipulate gravity. That's overpowered. The abilities in this game are absurdly strong. The former guild leader uses a centurion weapon, and its strength depends on the guild's size. But now that the guild is disbanded, that weapon should be weak, since there's nobody in the guild anymore. And why does a weapon like this even exist? How can an average player, not part of a guild, stand a chance against someone using that weapon? A player uses a paralysis macro that restricts movement. It's no fun at all to be on the receiving end of such a cheap move in a fight. Some players start disappearing when they die, while others remain perfectly intact. What's up with the inconsistency in this game? This player is about to get killed, but he conveniently logs out right before death. This is precisely why you shouldn't be allowed to log out in the middle of a fight. Anyone who gets infected by the black bird dies in real life. What kind of competition is this? Whoever stumbles upon the black bird is basically signing their death warrant in the real world. The company is going to be flooded with lawsuits. A guy was selling in-game items for real-world cash, so real money trading is allowed here. In most MMOs, this kind of stuff is a big no-no because it creates an unfair advantage and can lead to a swift ban. There are players just going about their own business and, out of the blue, get killed. This is why having PvP everywhere wouldn't be fun. Some places should be safe zones. The black bird is a virus that can infect human minds. But how does something in a game start messing with your mind in the real world? All the characters have been pulled into the game, and anything connected to the internet is affected. Even people who weren't playing the game got dragged into the game. It's utterly bizarre, right? You'd assume that only those who actively play the game would get sucked into its world. It's later stated that 70% of all humans on Earth were logged into the game. That would be billions of people. How does the game have enough servers to support billions of people being simultaneously logged into the game? This guy magically recovers all of his abilities. Where did this unexpected power boost even come from? The game lacks any logical coherence. The character sees a red dragon, proving that they're still trapped within yet another virtual world. Overall, Planet from Goodnight World isn't a great game to play. There are various issues from unbalanced gameplay dynamics to questionable game mechanics. Furthermore, the inclusion of real-life consequences, such as players dying from in-game infections, raises alarming questions about the game's design. The prevalence of PvP everywhere adds another layer of frustration. It's a world where unexplained power-ups, item imbalance, and peculiar game rules create an atmosphere of unpredictability and unfairness, leaving players craving more consistency in their virtual adventures. What are your impressions? Do you believe it would make for a good or bad gaming experience? Share your opinions with us in the comments section down below. Additionally, we'd love to hear your thoughts on the Goodnight World series itself and which MMO-themed anime, movie, or TV show you'd like us to analyze next. If you found this video insightful, please take a moment to express your support by hitting the like button and subscribing for more exciting MMO-related content in the future. Thank you for tuning in, and we look forward to having you with us in our upcoming video. Is the game featured in My Unique Skill Makes Me OP even at level 1 fun to play? Join us in this video as we dissect the game design. Absolutely everything in this world comes from monster drops. That means there's no cool resource gathering skills such as fishing, mining, or woodcutting. There are also no crafting skills, as people don't need to make anything themselves. Checking your stats is only possible at the status board. It would be a hassle to visit the status board every time you want to see your stats. Combat demands active participation. People must aim their attacks and evade incoming monster strikes. This isn't suitable for those seeking a relaxed or casual gaming experience. People can taste the food, which has its pros and cons. While delicious food can be a delightful experience, the unpleasant or foul-tasting food will be particularly challenging to consume. The protagonist possesses a unique skill that maximizes all their drops, which creates a significant imbalance. In a real game, other players would undoubtedly protest against such an overwhelming advantage. Giving people unique abilities like this is simply unfair. The existence of drops that only a select few people can see and collect is fundamentally unfair. All drops should be attainable by everyone. In a real game, such exclusivity would likely lead to complaints and cause players to quit. A girl wearing a bunny outfit significantly disrupts the immersive experience. Given the supposed medieval fantasy setting, such outfits like this feel entirely out of place. People are required to physically carry all of their belongings, as items don't automatically transfer into the inventory. This setup poses the risk of accidentally dropping or losing possessions. People can buy a magic cart to expand their item carrying capacity, but these carts come at a hefty price. It's quite frustrating that these quality of life improvements are only accessible to those willing to pay extra, essentially locking them behind a paywall. A giant monster appears, akin to a world boss in a typical MMO. All the nearby people can team up and fight the monster together. Disappointingly, these monsters don't drop any items upon defeat. It's rather disheartening to engage in battles with these creatures when there's no tangible reward for the time and effort. These monsters can demolish buildings, which is not amusing. Just imagine investing a substantial sum in purchasing a house only to have it destroyed by one of these creatures. It's illogical how the main character managed to defeat the monster with one hit. His strength is excessive, especially considering that he's only at level 1. The main character receives a gun and bullets as drops from the monster. It seems unjust that he's acquiring these special items from this particular monster, while the others literally aren't receiving anything at all. Although the characters receive numerous drops, they're unable to carry all of it at once. This forces them to make multiple trips to gather all their loot, adding a burdensome aspect. Monsters spawn if drops are left unattended without anyone around, creating an additional layer of inconvenience. It's an even more bothersome element. The main character acquires a bullet capable of freezing anything when shot, which appears rather pointless. It's more effective to kill the enemy outright rather than freezing them. There are monsters with the ability to possess humans, which would undoubtedly be an unfun and unsettling experience to have one's body taken over by these creatures. Obtaining a rare necklace from a monster that doubles all drops creates a significant imbalance in the game's mechanics. There are people attempting to sell boxed air, which is the most pointless item ever. Since people can already breathe the air freely, buying additional air is entirely unnecessary. People attacking each other anywhere creates a rather unfun and stressful environment. It necessitates keeping one's guard up at all times in anticipation of potential attacks. Having designated safe zones would significantly improve the experience. The existence of a box box that can automatically absorb all dropped items renders the need for a magic cart obsolete. The magic restricting storm is unpleasant. Those who rely on magic are completely ineffective until the storm dissipates, which significantly hampers their ability to participate in combat. The main character obtaining healing bullets is bizarre. Bullets are traditionally designed to inflict damage, not to provide healing, creating a significant departure from the usual mechanics. The main character obtaining another gun drop, enabling them to dual-wield guns without the need for a special unique skill, sets this world apart from the concept of dual-wielding weapons seen in Sword Art Online. The main character's ability to create sleeping bullets by combining two healing bullets is confusing. The combination of a freezing bullet and a fire bullet into an erasing bullet raises questions about how these bullet combinations are supposed to function. These combinations seem arbitrary. This character can store a substantial amount of items within her backpack. If that's the case, then why is a magic cart item even needed? The backpack's capacity seems to surpass the functionality of the magic cart. The requirement for characters to burn their trash to prevent it from transforming into monsters adds an irritating step to maintaining safety in this world. The main character obtaining bullets that can automatically home in on the attack target is overly powerful. This diminishes the importance of aiming skills and makes precise targeting less relevant. The main character using sleeping bullets to force a woman to go to sleep exemplifies the unpleasant consequences of allowing people to attack each other anywhere. People can be ambushed while going about their business, leaving them with little recourse to defend themselves. Drops are tax exempt until their ownership is officially determined, implying that even in a fantasy world, the concept of taxes still exists. If this was a real game, dealing with taxes would detract from the fun gameplay experience. The inconsistency in the drop system is evident when one of the characters defeats an Ent and it drops a chicken breast. Previously, slimes dropped bean sprouts and carrots, indicating a lack of coherence or logical connection between the creatures and the items they drop. Occasionally, monsters can spawn rare versions, following a pattern commonly seen in real MMOs. This mechanic adds an element of excitement. The existence of a spell that restricts others from using magic is unfair. Abilities that entirely limit or nullify other abilities makes battles one-sided and tips the scales too heavily in favor of those casting the restricting spell. Requiring a minimum group size of at least 3 people to fight the Dungeon Master excludes solo players from the experience. It's disheartening to limit Dungeon Master battles to group participation. The Dungeon Master's ability to permanently lower a person's stats deviates from the norm seen in MMOs, where monsters typically inflict temporary stat reductions. Permanently diminishing someone's hard-earned high stats is not enjoyable, as it negates their progress and efforts. The main character acquiring binding bullets raises questions about their utility, as they may seem less useful compared to outright killing a monster. Additionally, given the existence of freezing bullets that effectively immobilize monsters, the binding bullets are somewhat redundant. The main character acquires a pouch that automatically gathers and stores dropped items. This seems useless, since there are already boxes that can do that. Even the currency is solely derived from monster drops. It's surprising that the game doesn't operate on a more traditional barter system, which would likely make more sense for the economy. The presence of houses equipped with technology to counteract the side effects of the magic storm raises the question of why this technology isn't more widespread. It seems logical that all houses should incorporate such technology to mitigate the adverse effects of the storm. Without it, being a magic user and getting caught up in a magic storm would be troublesome. Some dungeons feature floors that simulate winter, reminiscent of the varying themes and settings seen in each floor of Sword Art Online. However, in this world, the snow appears to be purely cosmetic, as people don't face the necessity of wearing additional clothing to stay warm despite the wintry environment, so it's a less immersive experience. There are special slimes that become impervious to damage from the last attacker when they're near death, which places solo players at a disadvantage as it requires at least 2 people to defeat this type of slime. The jewel that can reflect some of the monster's attacks back at them resembles the Ring of Recoil in RuneScape. However, in most cases, it's quicker and more efficient to eliminate the monsters on on your own, making this jewel appear less useful and practical. Allowing people to consume a magic fruit and instantly learn a random spell might not be ideal, as there's a risk of learning a spell that's not useful. People should get to choose which spell they want to learn. The combat pets that fight for people is an interesting concept, but why is this feature exclusive to this character? In order to maintain fairness, all the players should be able to obtain pets like this. The character with wings and the ability to fly can be perceived as overpowered in combat, especially when facing opponents who rely solely on melee weapons. Requiring people to team up for tournament participation puts solo players at a disadvantage yet again. As a whole, this isn't a very solo-friendly game at all. The main character defeating a dungeon master on their own contradicts the previous notion that people must form groups of 3 to challenge dungeon masters. This inconsistency is confusing. The characters purchasing magic carts that automatically send all drops to their house effectively eliminates any immediate storage issues, allowing people to stay in the dungeons and farm mobs until there's no room in their house anymore. The ability for people to show up at other people's houses uninvited can lead to unpleasant and intrusive situations in the game. People could just enter your house when you're not home and steal all your stuff. It would be better if the house owner had control over who could enter their property. Overall, the game showcased in My Unique Skill Makes Me OP even at level 1 introduces an unbalanced experience centered on monster drops as the sole means of item acquisition. By eliminating traditional resource gathering and crafting methods, the game detracts from the diverse and immersive elements often found in MMOs. While the game's combat is interactive, demanding precision in attacks and evading enemy strikes can be tedious and tiresome. Moreover, the game suffers from glaring inconsistencies and imbalances. These discrepancies sow confusion and frustration among players, undermining the gaming experience. Elements such as the drops system, housing mechanics, and unique character abilities not only challenge fairness, but also disrupt the equilibrium of the game. Certain in-game items skew the gameplay dynamics, while features like allowing uninvited access to other people's houses further impede control and privacy. Do you think it's a good or bad game? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments below, and don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more MMO content. Thanks for joining us on this journey, and see you in the next video.
Additionally, let's take a look at some SAO Easter eggs hidden in video games.
Video games are filled with Easter eggs and references to other media, and there are even some Sword Art Online Easter eggs in a lot of popular video games. In this video, let's take a look at 5 Sword Art Online Easter eggs in video games. Number 1. Borderlands. Borderlands 2 is an action role-playing first-person shooter video game. You know what else is an action role-playing first-person shooter video game? Gun Gale Online, which makes this Easter egg pretty fitting. One of the locations in Dal Abandon is called Sinan's Perch. This is obviously a reference to Sinan / Asada Shino, the female protagonist of the Phantom Bullet arc, but that's not the only Sword Art Online Easter egg in the Borderlands game series. There's yet another Phantom Bullet related Easter egg in the sequel Borderlands 3. There's a character called Flak, and you can customize the heads of the character. The Deathless head looks quite similar to the head of Death Gun, who was the main antagonist of the Phantom Bullet arc. Number 2. Aura Kingdom. Aura Kingdom is a Taiwanese MMORPG made by X Legend. In the game, you can obtain costumes similar to Kirito and Asuna's outfits from Minecraft. There's Kirito style and Asuna style. Number 3. Cyber Dimension Neptunia 4 Goddesses Online. There's a female character called Kiria, who's a player participating in the beta test of 4 Goddesses Online. Furthermore, Kiria has excellent reflexes, and she's often known in other games as the Black Knight. Kiria is without a doubt a reference to Kirito. They both dress in black and have spiked black hair. Additionally, Kiria and Kirito were both beta testers for the game they played. Also, the fact that they both have excellent reflexes is quite similar as well. Lastly, Kiria is known in other games as the Black Knight, which is a reference to Kirito's nickname, the Black Swordsman. But that's not the only Sword Art Online Easter egg in this game. There's also an NPC called Kiryu, who's dressed in all black and dual wielding 2 swords. Kiryu also tells you that he's a solo player, and he survived death several times. Kiryu also says that he'll fight you if you can reach the 75th floor. This is yet again a reference to Kirito. Kirito also dressed in all black and could dual wield 2 swords at the same time. Moreover, Kirito was a solo player and survived being killed multiple times. The part about the 75th floor is a reference to how the Sword Art Online game was cleared after Kirito defeated Heathcliff, which took place on floor 75. But wait, there's more. There's also a character in the game called Asuka, who's a friend of Kirya. This is obviously a reference to Asuna. Asuka's outfit looks a lot like Asuna's Knights of the Blood Oath outfit, and she has a similar hair color to Asuna. Furthermore, Asuka likes to call Kirya by the name of Kazuko, which is nearly identical to Kirito's real name Kazuto. Number 4. World of Warcraft. There's an item called Heathcliff's Immortality. This is obviously a reference to Kayaba Akihiko's character in the Sword Art Online game Heathcliff. You can see that the text reads, Heathcliff, known as the Immortal Object, was said to be immune to any grave injury. Some question whether the Blood Knight's fortitude transcended the natural laws of the world. Heathcliff made himself an immortal object that was immune to death. We even saw that his HP would never go into the yellow zone. Heathcliff was the leader of the Knights of the Blood Oath Guild, so that's what the Blood Knight part is referring to. Additionally, the part about transcending the natural laws of the world is a reference to how Kayaba Akihiko was the creator of the game, so he could control the game and the world of Sword Art Online and do whatever he wanted. He didn't need to follow the laws of the Sword Art Online game world. Number 5. RuneScape. There's a title called Sword Artist. You can unlock this title by equipping a black longsword and an adamant offhand longsword. You also have to be a male character with a black Evan-style hairstyle. Furthermore, you have to be clean shaven and can't have any other overrides active. You then go to the Serenity Post in Prifddinos and perform the poses Lotus, Bow, Ward, and Crane in that particular order. This is of course a reference to Kirito. The black longsword and adamant offhand longsword are similar to Kirito's Elucidator and Dark Repulsor. Furthermore, you have to be a male character with a black Evan-style hairstyle, and you have to be clean shaven, which is similar to Kirito's appearance. Well, that's it for this video. Do you know of any more Sword Art Online Easter eggs in video games? If so, let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
Have you ever wondered what real MMO players think about SAO and its game design?
A lot of Sword Art Online fans think that Sword Art Online would be an amazing game to play if it existed in real life, but it's pretty obvious that those people have little to no experience when it comes to actually playing MMORPGs, because Sword Art Online is a very poorly designed game, and the mechanics don't make sense. It would not work in real life, and I'm saying this as someone who has thousands of days of MMORPG playtime. Mother's Basement's video Why SAO is a Terrible Game Too does a good job explaining this exact topic, but what do other actual MMORPG players think of the Sword Art Online game itself? Is it good or bad? Let's get some real responses from the general population. I browsed the MMORPG subreddit on Reddit and found some strong opinions about this topic. Here are some of the best comments I was able to gather. Enjoy!
SAO is only interesting if you are either or have never actually experienced anything other than SAO. It's a show about a disturbingly bad video game that would be mocked as the apotheosis of bad game design. SAO is a badly designed MMO. Let's not beat this dead horse. Of all the anime out there centered around a non-existent MMO, SAO is by far the worst designed. No magic, no healers, no support combat classes, unique skills like dual wielding that are just randomly given to a single player. Primarily because not only is SAO garbage Hari-manine, but the game within the anime is garbage as well. I'd rather an MMO based off of Log Horizon, rather than SAO. SAO's mechanics would just be awful for an MMO. SAO was written by a hack who doesn't actually understand game design or MMOs in general. The author even outright admitted it, too. He designed the game based on what he heard about MMOs. He never played one. SAO is not an accurate representation of an MMO. Go post your otaku fanboy posts on /r/anime. I can tell you that as an avid reader of the novel, many of Reki Kawahara's concepts of MMORPG design, including those he used in Sword Art Online, contradict themselves and limit players more than anything. Some of the concepts may seem novel, but at the end of the day, their end result may not be exactly how you would see them pan out, and can even have a detrimental effect on whatever game decides to implement them. Sad thing is, I can't understand how people even come up with SAO and MMOs. The anime is so extreme shallow and horrible when it comes to the gaming part. There are barely any mechanics or features explained. I could totally understand when Log Horizon is mentioned, because it is more in-depth. SAO is everything that is wrong with MMOs, shallow and incomplex. That is because it is a anime that makes no sense in any way. You clearly notice instantly that they use the gaming costume to hide a love story. Dude, please, open your eyes. If you don't notice immediately that this anime is a pile of garbage when it comes to actual gaming, then you can't be helped. There are no rules in this game, and that is the biggest mistake. Because everything has very hard set rules when it comes to gaming, SAO is a total joke. But fanboys will somehow justify everything. The problem with SAO and other MMO anime is that it's centered around the protagonist. Everyone wants to be the hero, so to say, and that's what happens in these animes. You get that one-of-a-kind rare weapon, skill, drop, etc. But in a real-world setting, if Bob was the only player on the server with the ability to dual-wield, every other player would complain, leave. Same with these tower-type things. David gets to floor 100 first and gets the one-of-a-kind legendary sword. Now no other players are gonna try, and all the development time, money that went into that tower goes poof. SAO is not a game. The writer don't even like video games. SAO is a badly designed MMO if you get down to the nitty-gritty. SAO would make a terrible MMO and would bomb. SAO is a pseudo game whose only purpose to drive the narrative. It wouldn't work as an actual game, ever. SAO is not a good game concept. But if you want the art style, as someone who read the novel before the anime aired, which dwell more on the technical aspects of SAO as an MMO than the anime, which only portrayed it as a virtual harem adventure, I don't like the idea of a SAO MMO. It's full of flaws as a game. However, I want the technology in SAO universe to be a reality. As always with these posts, I must remind you that SAO was a terrible MMO. It just hit all the right points for an awesome story. In reality, this would never work.
So as you can see, most people in the MMORPG community don't generally have a lot of positive opinions about Sword Art Online, the anime and the game within the show. And don't think that I'm just cherry picking the negative comments. It's safe to say that the majority of MMORPG players think that Sword Art Online is garbage and does not have good mechanics. Well, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe so you never miss a future upload. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.